How everything began. Pleiadian-Plejaren's Contact Reports. Introduction Block 1, pages 1-3.
Or on the 3rd February 1941, when I had just turned 4, I lived in Niederflachs, 1253, a short distance from the town of Bülach, which was surrounded by the Eschenmoser and Bruder mountains, as well as by wide forests and extensive meadows and fields. Even then I felt the urge to learn a lot and to become knowledgeable and wise, as well as modest, kind, and worthy of life. Mother and father guided me through their education of me in this direction. However, Pastor Rudolf Zimmermann, a minister of the Reformed Church of the municipality of Bülach, likewise played a weighty role, because in him quite especially I saw the expression of knowledge and wisdom as well as the virtue of modesty, but also his kindness and appreciation in regard to human beings and life. These conditions were the constant motivation for me to contemplate all those values and to develop myself in that direction, which also meant for me, however, that irrespective of my young age, I had to learn a lot, and that I actually wasn't averse to learning. Nevertheless, I did not agree completely with all that I had to learn, and the things that were explained and made known to me. Thus, from a very early age, I learned to maintain my own trains of thought in a controlled manner, to draw my own conclusions, and to make my own decisions. Through this, I also learned to separate the wheat from the chaff, and to look for the truth where it is basically to be found, namely, in one's own inner and innermost, as well as in one's own intellect, in one's own reason, one's own thoughts, contemplations, and feelings. From this developed the recognition and application of self-responsibility, and the recognition and fulfillment of responsibility in regard to fellow human beings, the worlds of plants and animals, and in regard to life and the creational laws and recommendations. Thus I recognized very soon, and before I had even turned 5, that there was very much more to life than human beings occupied themselves with in everyday existence, as with work, which in those days, as a rule, also encroached on one's free time. Thus, according to my cognition, however, there was still very much more than only the instructive educational moments and the usual learning, which is simply learnt by small earthlings in everyday life from peers, parents, grandparents, neighbours, and so on. So I also realized that irrespectively of my young age, I was a human being, like every other human being, only that I could not yet fit into the ranks of adults, because many years of growing up still separated me from them. Therefore, because of this and other things, I longed to grow up quickly, indeed in consciousness-based as well as body and age-based concerns. But it quickly became clear to me that I could not turn the wheel of time in order for it to run faster. Consequently, I consciously had to practice patience, which also caused me no difficulties. Well, it happened during a mild night in May in the year 1941, and if I remember rightly, it was around 3 a.m. in the night of Sunday, May 4th. In any case, this is how it all has been etched into my memory, indeed, because everything, which took place at that time, was a special experience. I slept and dreamt that I saw my own body lying asleep in bed. Thinking about it in my sleep, I made the observation that I really was asleep, which somehow amazed me and moved me to wake up deliberately. A little drowsy, I looked out of the window, through which I saw the clear starry sky. So I rose from my bed, went to the window and climbed out, as it was almost at ground level. Outside, I sat down on the simple bench, which stood against the wall of the house and which Father had built. I could not see the moon, however. The sky was clear and wrapped in velvety black, and millions of stars shone down from the firmament. For a few minutes I sat there like that and looked up to the stars, while pondering and flying, in my thoughts, far into the universe. However, suddenly something peculiar happened inside of me, which from the next moment irrevocably changed my whole life. Strangely touched, I looked at my hands and body and could only vaguely recognize them. So I touched my body and felt it. Then I heard my own voice say, "My life is made out of the love of creation." And I could not explain why I said that and which power led me to speak these words. A slight shiver came over me, although the night was quiet warm, and then I noticed that I also felt peculiar. Nevertheless, I was not frightened. Again I looked up to the stars and realized that the stars were distant suns in the vast outer space, and that these shone by themselves by means of their own power, even though they were created from the light of the love of creation, as is everything in the whole universe. And again, words, the origins of which I could not decipher, the sense of which I was, however, able to grasp, as with the first words, escaped from my lips. Everything is created out of the light of love. And then further words followed. The space between the stars is empty and yet not empty, and everything that exists in the whole universe is a living V-sin. Everything is creation and creation itself. The words that came from my own mouth penetrated deeply into me, and in them, I realized that the true source of life is the light of true creational, love which, in its vitality, creates all life and has inherent in itself all laws and recommendations of creational regulation and all information about life and death. I recognized that the light, which the stars emitted, was a light in the visible spectrum. However, the light of the true love remained invisible, creational, and for all great time. And yet, the beaming stars were there, which stirred an unfamiliar longing in me for the vast distance and faraway worlds. Then suddenly words formed on my lips again which said, "Since ancient times you have lived amongst the stars," and suddenly I knew who I was, how I am, and what my mission is on this earth. And suddenly impulses came from somewhere, which I later recognized as impulses from the storage banks, and many good memories penetrated me and showed me the way I had to go in my life. Thus I also suddenly knew what space and time signify concerning the evolution of human beings and all things, and what the actual meaning of life is, in which the human being must create true love, peace, freedom, knowledge, harmony, and wisdom. And the cognition of it was awakened, that no life nor any other things at all could exist in the universe if the true being, the creation, did not direct everything with its love as well as its laws and recommendations. Thereby, as I recognized at that time as a little boy, life becomes the power of creation, the highest might, which has created and maintains the universe and everything within it. This is everything I became aware of during this night as a little boy, who was just 4 years old. Everything that exists in the whole universe is a manifestation of the might and the unending and true love of the tremendous universal consciousness, which is simply called creation. And together with it, the creation, everything that was created by it is creation, everything existing in the whole universe, everything that crawls and flies. However, true love, as well as the true love of creation itself, of which I became aware, is a form of incomprehensibly shining light, of the Sohar, which permeates everything and allows all life and all existence to pulsate. Therefore, true love is light, which in turn perceives light and endlessly radiates further and never ends, but always keeps accumulating. And this love is also existent and recognizable in all matter, as well as in human beings, in whom it is present as a result of the creational spirit, and which he just has to let grow in him, internally and externally, whereby the true love again reflects true love and creates harmony. This true love is the reality, and not, however, all the illusions and unreal dreams which the human being contrives, which he can never realize, as they, exactly like smoke, only obscure his view and do not allow him to recognize what true love really is and what he himself is in reality within the universal drive mechanism of creation. The exterior, the body of the human being is, to be exact, impermanent and mortal. However, the true love of creational nature, which is anchored in his true inner being, in the spirit, is pure light of being, and is immortal. Already at the age of 4, this great realization instantly changed my life, because after I was familiarized with this insight and understanding by means of the impulses from the storage banks, and also learned who I really was, what I had to learn and do in my life and what my life task was, I looked at and considered human beings, animals, and nature, as well as all existing things in a completely new mode, and I suddenly felt a great astonishment within myself about that, which I now discovered. All of a sudden I saw myself in everything, in every fellow human being, in every flower or other plant, in every tree and shrub, in every animal, in the snow, in the water, in the earth, in the lightning and thunder, in the clouds, in the wind, and in the sunshine, because everything was and is connected in true creational love and forms a unity that can never be separated. Even life and death are woven into it and are inseparably intertwined with each other. And exactly as a result of this connection, which was instantly clear to me. Everything is mixed and connected in infinitely various ways, through which myriads of manifestations of life and existences were created, exist, and will continue to be created. Within a few moments, I understood everything. I was excited with joy, and within me peace and harmony spread, but also the deepest deference and modesty before the creational Gewaltigkeit in infinite true love. Then, days and years later, I tried to explain to my parents and neighbors everything that had come about within me during that night, because I had a very great need to report and to explain what cognitions I had gained. I could hardly wait to communicate this to my fellow human beings, but the opportunity to do this was not granted to me. There simply weren't the words for me to explain myself, and there were no human beings who understood what I as a little boy tried to explain to them. So I tried in vain to pass on my experiences and cognitions, but nobody grasped what I really meant. Parents, relatives, neighbors, teachers, and other fellow human beings only saw how I changed more and more. However, they did not perceive that my eyes and my voice emitted something which was strange to them. They only noticed that I became more and more modest, and that I didn't condemn anything or anyone, and that I always gave what I could give. I became a human being who was no longer the same as the others, one who was still young in years, and yet already old in his cognitions. I could understand fellow human beings very well, and give good advice even to old people, who were very grateful for it. But nobody was in a position to understand me, except for Pastor Rudolf Zimmermann. Some thought I was a loner, others compared me to a sage, but nobody understood what actually went on inside me, what kind of thoughts and feelings I had, and what my real desire was, to be able to intelligibly transmit my cognitions and knowledge to other human beings. My thoughts led me to the cognition that essentially every human being should see himself in his fellow human beings, as I saw myself in all other human beings, but no one ever thinks to do this. Every human being lives only for himself and his own welfare, unless in some kind of feeling-based love or emotional love, or perhaps really in true love, he forms a connection with someone else. Thus it became clear to me that I had to assume the responsibility of my task and dedicate my life to it in order to give human beings understanding and to instruct them that they dream up unreal things, and indeed without consciousness and without comprehending what and who they really are and for which purpose they eke out their life here on earth. Thus the human being has to learn to recognize himself and not to hide behind fog and smoke, and not to believe that thereby life can be lived successfully and progressively. Hence the saying shall be uttered, that it is very easy to go through life without perception and with closed eyes, and to disregard and misunderstand everything which, nevertheless, is seen out of the corner of one's eye.
Only the human being who fulfills the living, who does not put up a smokescreen, shall someday attain happiness and win the true love of the human being.